Today we're here to discuss about how coronavirus is impacting patients with chronic disease. And as part of that, you're all aware that we're currently in the midst of a major health crisis. And while the government is taking action to reduce the risk of infection, it's important that we do our part as well. So far, elderly people and those with under cholesterol, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, chronic respiratory diseases, and cancer are at a higher risk of severe complications with the novel coronavirus. At Wellthy, we work very closely with people with diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and heart disease on a daily basis. We are faced with several questions. My brother has a cough and I'm diabetic. What should I do? For how long do I need to stay home? Will this outbreak ever end? Should I stock up on medications? How long should I stock them up for? Will a mask protect me? So we have questions coming in of all kinds that we address. And we realize that while there is a lot of information that's already shared, there is very little information circulated which is specific for patients with chronic conditions. And we thought that this is a great opportunity to share more on what the Ministry of Health, ADA, AHA, and ACC guidelines say about managing your health during this time of crisis. Right, so we have with us today Dr. Abhijit Ahuja, we have Dr. Sid Kolvankar and Shilpa Joshi, the expert panel, who will talk to you about all questions that you have with regards to corona and your underlying health conditions. So all of you are aware that coronavirus is from a group of viruses that causes a range of diseases, from common cold to severe respiratory illnesses that form the part of severe acute respiratory syndrome, the SARS-CoV. However, the novel coronavirus is a new strain of this virus that is recently identified in humans. And as you're all aware, it started in China in December, and in 3-4 months' time, it spread to more than 150 countries. We're aware that you might have a lot of questions, but before we get down to the questions, let us have each of the panelists introduce themselves, and we'll take on the questions from there. Dr. Abhijit, over to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Abhijit Ahuja. I'm a consultant interventional pulmonologist attached to Saifi and Bhatia hospitals.
Dr. Sid, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Sid. I lead the clinical team at Wellthy. And Wellthy, under the clinical team, we work for patients that are suffering from diabetes, hypertension, and cardiac conditions as of now.
Shilpa Joshi, can I request you to introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, I'm Shilpa Joshi. I'm consultant dietitian and diabetes educator working in Mumbai. I'm also the Vice President of Indian Dietetic Association.
Great, thank you so much and welcome to the Wellthy's expert session. We'd love to have you respond to a lot of questions, and without much ado, let me dive into all the questions that we have and we've been receiving from patients for the last several days. Dr. Sid, this is for you. We've been having a lot of questions that come to us from our patients who ask us, why are people with diabetes and cardiac conditions at a higher risk of severe infection? Is it that they're at the risk of infection, or does it actually impact the outcomes of the infection once they get it?
Sure, Pranati. So yes, this is a question that is fair to understand from the earlier studies or the interim studies that the data is coming out. Diabetic patients are at a higher risk of complications from this virus. But currently, if you were to ask me if they are more susceptible, they are more at risk of getting the virus, we do not have enough data to suggest so. But once a patient that is diagnosed with diabetes, contracts this virus, the chances of complications are quite higher in these patients.
Oh, that's an important point.
Is true with and the same is true with cardiovascular patients suffering from cardiovascular conditions. That once they contract the virus, the complications are quite higher compared to the rest of the population.
That's a very important point that you've made, Dr. Sid, and I think it's important that we reinforce that patients with diabetes and cardiac conditions today, we don't have enough data to say whether having those conditions increases their risk for catching the coronavirus. However, unfortunately, if they do test positive and do suffer from the infection, if they're not controlled, their risk of having severe complications associated with coronavirus really goes up. Dr. Sid, you made a fair point with regards to patients with diabetes and cardiac conditions probably not being at risk for infection to begin with, considering right now we don't have enough data to state that. However, once they do catch the infection, their risk of severe complications that arise with corona can really increase. Dr. Abhijit, would you be able to spread some light as to why this can actually happen? Why do patients, once they catch the infection, have an increased risk of complications?
With people who have already got comorbid conditions, their ability to fight a disease is lower as compared to a person who doesn't have any comorbid conditions. So when the virus enters your body, the body starts to fight against it. But with your immune systems being at a lower level when you're a diabetic or a hypertensive or having any other comorbid disease, the virus spreads throughout and you're at a higher risk of getting more complications like pneumonia, respiratory failure, etc.
Right, fair point. So I think a key point that you've made here and that needs to be highlighted is immunity, and it's crucial that patients with chronic conditions ensure that they maintain good immunity. Inherently the conditions, the comorbidities actually could lower their immunity. But Shilpa Joshi, can you throw some light on how can such patients, what steps can they take from a diet lifestyle point of view to increase their immunity?
So, like pointed out by Dr. Sid and Dr. Abhijit, that people who have comorbidities like diabetes and or maybe heart disease, hypertension, have more risk of getting complications of infection. It's very important that these individuals keep their numbers or their blood sugars in range so that their complication risk is minimized. Now, these are stressful times where people are asked to be quarantined or they choose to be homebound, and therefore there is more possibility that either due to being just homebound, lack of exercise, being around food, or even stress, and sometimes even lack of sleep because of stress can work on their immunity and actually can lower their immunity. So it's highly recommended that they follow a healthy lifestyle, eat right food, but very important is actually monitor their sugars very, very regularly, get good amount of sleep so that their immunity is at its peak.
Right. I think such relevant points Shilpa Joshi has brought out, and I think I'd just like to quickly, summarize those. So, Shilpa, please feel free to join. You basically mentioned that, we need to ensure that patients like these monitor their sugars well, ensure that their blood sugars are within range. They need to sleep well, keep stress at bay, and basically ensure that they're eating well and exercising enough so that their immunity is at its best. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's super. Dr. Sid, would you like to add anything? I mean, what are the other things, other precautions or care that patients with chronic conditions can do?
Sure. So taking off from what Shilpa Joshi mentioned about lifestyle and activity, when you're in your home quarantine, AHA, this is actually coming out from the recommendations from AHA. It's important to maintain a circuit workout at home. Set a schedule for yourself at home. Wake up at a certain time. Do not be lazy during the day. Set times when you will eat, set times when you will work out. If you don't want to step out of the house, it's important that you will work out at home. There are plenty of workout videos that are available that will help you to set a 15 to 20 minute workout at home. And it's important to set it at a right time to maintain that circuit and to maintain that schedule. And also what Shilpa Joshi mentioned is monitoring. So it's what is important during these times is patients that are suffering from diabetes, it's to monitor your blood sugar levels regularly. As your activity reduces, your blood sugars tend to fluctuate because you're eating at home and suddenly your you've shifted from a regular activity, during the day to a sedentary lifestyle where you're sitting at home most of the time. So it's important to monitor your blood sugars regularly, to check your postprandials, that is, check your blood sugars after your meals and check your blood sugars before your meals and see if there is any drastic changes that your body is going through because of this entire change in lifestyle that has been brought up upon us. Also, it's important for the diabetic patients to make sure that they have all their medications at one place. If you're running out of medications, I think now is the time to go out and get those refills of the medication so that you don't run out at this time.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. I think there are very, very good points that have come out of this discussion, and I think it's Dr. Sid, as you rightly pointed out. Not only is it important that they have enough stock of medications, I think usually the laziness of taking them on regularly also impacts adherence. So maybe taking medications on time as prescribed by the physician is equally crucial to ensure that their blood sugars or whatever chronic conditions they're treating continue to remain in control. Right. Thank you so much for that. I think that was very relevant. Dr. Sid, would you have any thoughts on precautions that patients with cardiac conditions need to take? Anything specific that they need to keep in mind?
Sure. So everything that in terms of maintaining a home circuit workout, coming from the American Health Association, also applies to cardiac patients. What is also important for cardiac patients is that some of them are on medications that there are plenty of rumors that are going around that certain medications may affect your ability or your fighting power against the virus. At this point, there is no concrete evidence to say so. So it is important for cardiac patients to continue their medications as prescribed by their doctors and do not fall prey to these rumors that are going around, or do not fall prey to things that you read over the internet. So any of these medications that you are taking, if you do hear about it, it's important to talk to your doctor first before self-medication or deciding to stop the medications on your own.
I think that's such an important point that you made. We've had so many questions come in from patients asking us about so many herbal remedies, and I guess in types of crisis you do go back to your old grandma medicines, if you may call them those. We'll come back to those. I have a lot of questions with regards to that for Shilpa, and we'll come back to those questions a little later. But before that, Dr. Abhijit, we've had questions that come in from patients, and I'm quite sure our audience too wants to know, will there be a shortage of medicines? And, yes, if they need to stock up, how far do they need to stock up for?
We should not get into panic buying mode, especially for medicines that we don't need as of now. It's only those medications that you have been taking regularly and for your conditions that you need to keep a good stock of. Apart from that, your regular paracetamol and your other medications for your symptomatic relief should be available all throughout this period, as advised by our Honorable Prime Minister.
Right. Thank you so much. And I think, and I'm sure you would agree, is that a lot of patients are probably avoiding going out with the fear of catching the infection, and hence also stocking up. But yes, fair point. And I think a point to reinforce is that there is no need to panic. And I think the government has been very clear in the fact that all essential services will continue to run as always.